Imagine having the life you always dreamed of. Perfect career, perfect relationship, and a future full of possibilities. Now, imagine that everything you've worked for, everything you trusted, is suddenly ripped away from you. This is the story of how I went from living the dream to facing a devastating betrayal that changed everything. I was living what most people would consider a picture-perfect life. I had a high-paying job in a lucrative industry, earning a comfortable six-figure salary. I was serving in the National Guard, staying in great shape, and I even managed to build my own house on a small farm. Things were looking up, and I felt like I had everything under control. On top of that, I had been married for 2 years to my partner of 11 years. We were planning to start a family, a dream we both shared deeply. Our lives were aligned, our future was secure, and nothing could have prepared me for what would come next. While I was away on a combat deployment, working overseas for over 6 months, I stumbled upon something I never expected. I discovered that my wife had been having an affair with a man she hired to fix our fence. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. But what really stung was the realization that not only had they been intimate, but it was unprotected, and worse. She had developed real feelings for him. As I processed the shock, I couldn't help but wonder, how could she have fallen for someone like him? He was a small-town cowboy, everything I wasn't. I was distant, always busy with work and my commitments, but she had found something in him that she never found in me. A side of her I never saw. A part of her heart I didn't know was missing. The strangest part of this whole situation was that my wife still had no idea that I knew about the affair. She continued to act as though everything was fine between us, pretending that she lived alone during my absence, when in reality, she had been leading a double life. Despite her betrayal, she maintained that she wanted to start a family with me. She planned for our future as if nothing had changed. While I was away, she had envisioned a life with this other man, planning to raise kids, create memories, and build a future together. Meanwhile, she continued to deceive me on the deepest level. I struggled with the question, how could I move forward after this? I had always prided myself on being a responsible provider and protector, yet here I was, the victim of an unimaginable betrayal. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that our relationship could never go back to the way it was. I confided in my Catholic best friend, sharing every painful detail of my discovery. He believed in saving the relationship, but I couldn't see a path forward. My wife's actions made it impossible for me to trust her again. So, I began taking steps to prepare for a divorce. But even as I began talking to lawyers, something inside me refused to let go. I couldn't help but feel trapped in a relationship that was held together by nothing more than lies. It felt like I was walking on a tightrope, unable to step forward but too afraid to look back. The private investigator I hired revealed things I wasn't ready to hear. The man my wife had been seeing wasn't just some random cowboy. He was married with 2 kids, living just a few minutes away from our home. Worse yet, he had a history of shady behavior, multiple aliases, a suspended license, and a criminal conviction. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. My emotional state was unraveling, and one night I reached a breaking point. I had a panic attack, waking up in tears next to my wife, and I couldn't help but wonder if she was still manipulating me, or if she was truly unaware of the pain she had caused. Then came the moment I had been dreading. The confrontation. I had planned it carefully, intending to confront her on her birthday. She had no idea what was coming. When she opened the beautifully wrapped box I gave her, her face dropped. Inside, she found the divorce papers I had carefully prepared. She collapsed in tears, begging for forgiveness, but I knew deep down that it was too late. The lies were too many. The trust was too broken. But I wasn't done yet. The shock on her face was nothing compared to the bombshell I dropped next. While her parents were calling to wish her a happy birthday, I told them everything. Her affair, the lies, the broken marriage. Her mother's anguished scream echoed in the background, but there was no turning back. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to protect her anymore. I sent emails to her family, her friends, and her colleagues, exposing the truth about her betrayal. It was a devastating step, but I needed closure. The truth was out, and I couldn't keep living a lie. She begged me to take her back, promised to make an effort to fix the relationship, but the damage was done. My heart had already broken, and no amount of apologies could fix what had been shattered. Days later, she moved out of the house. I stayed behind, alone, holding on to the pieces of my shattered life. She eventually moved to Texas and began a new chapter, while I was left to rebuild mine. The divorce was finalized, and I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. I had come to terms with the fact that I couldn't change what had happened, but I could choose what came next. The pain, the betrayal, it would always be a part of me, but it would no longer define me. My faith, the unwavering support from my closest friends, and the lessons I learned from my deployment became my anchor during the darkest days. I realized that everything happens for a reason, even the hardest lessons. And now, I'm ready for a new chapter, one where I can build a future with someone who truly values me. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you to consider subscribing to Lost Love Stories. Your support helps us continue to share stories like this, stories that remind us that no matter how tough life gets, we're never alone.